Ladies and gentlemen, please take your seats. The program is about to begin.
Hey, good afternoon. Post lunch, everyone. I see people are still trickling in. I welcome you back to the program. My name is Janess Simler. I am the Vice President for Contested Logistics Solutions at Boeing, and I am truly looking forward to learning more about the evolving Naval Sustainment System Supply 2.0 framework that our panel today will discuss. My understanding is that the focus is on fleet outcomes and data-driven contributions to fleet readiness. From an industry perspective, a focus on outcomes sought maximizes our ability to innovate and to offer novel business models as opposed to strictly transactional arrangements. When coupled with new congressional requirements for DoD to identify material readiness objectives by weapon system, similar to the Navy's North Star readiness targets, and to identify resources in the budget request to achieve those goals, Naval Sustainment Supplies, Naval Sustainment System Supply 2.0 presents an opportunity to send a clear demand signal to industry that is an essential building block to building resilient supply chains, which are critical for logistics in a contested environment. Thank you so much for your attention, and I want to introduce our moderator, who hopefully will not have the stuttering problem I just had, Admiral Epps, our Commander of Naval Systems Supply Command. Thank you. Enjoy.
Thank you, and I hope you didn't just jinx me there. Good afternoon, folks. Welcome. We are really excited about this panel today. And as I was thinking about my opening comments, as a supply guy, the last few years have probably been some of the most exciting in my career. And I'll tell you, the excitement started out from really a singular moment. So if you'll take the clock back a few years during Secretary Mattis's time, and he came out with a simple clarion call, and that is, I want 80% of our tactical fighters to be up at all times and mission ready, or MC as we call it in the naval aviation world. I think at the time we were probably, and you'll have to fact check me here, but I think we were probably closer to something in the 50% range. So the gap between where we were and getting to 80% really kind of symbolized big, hairy, audacious goals. And for a lot of us who supported naval aviation, at the time, I would have told you, a lot of us thought it was a mission impossible, that it was just a new secretary coming on board. He had his vision, and we would all sit there and do the push-ups, but there was no way we would get to that goal. And I think some of you probably appreciate that. Well, not only did we achieve the impossible only a few years later, and you'll hear a term today, and you probably heard it as part of our lexicon, when we hit that number in naval aviation, 341 for Super Hornets. That was our 80% number of having those jets up and ready to fight. And what's been, I think, even more remarkable about this journey is that not only have we sustained that number, we regularly exceed it within Super Hornets. Which has been for the last couple of years. And similarly, we've carried the learnings in that type model series across naval aviation. So that was kind of journey lesson number one, and it was the hit that we needed to really encourage us to think big and push beyond where we were. There were a lot of things that contributed to that success. I think chief among them was the operations center that Airland stood up down in Norfolk. So if you're familiar with the mock AOG, there is no doubt that that was the center of the universe which got us there. But I would tell you, and the CNO and VCNO both spoke to the operations center during their talks this week, but I would tell you, I think the real secret to our success lies in what is represented up here today. It was the connection between the sustainment enablers, the engineers, the maintenance folks, and the supply folks, obviously in partnership with industry. And I think what we did that was so magical here was what I consider a really radical transformation of how we attack problem solving. So if you're familiar with Navy's Get Real, Get Better journey, you'll hear a little bit of that today. But this journey, in many ways, grew with the Get Real, Get Better journey, and really led us to where we are to be able to work upstream on all the issues that drive and result in downstream force generation and readiness. So it was really the work that we did further up the stream, not just the tactical day-to-day stuff, but the things we did upstream to work downstream to get that right. So success in naval aviation, we translated that to the naval shipyards. Sub-boss has given us a similar goal that he wants 80% of his fast attack submarines to be available. SWOBOS has given us a similar goal. He wants at all times at least 75 of his surface combatants up and ready to go MC'd. So today's panel is going to help us talk about how we got here, our struggles and successes, and highlight some of the challenges for us. And so before I get into the questioning, I want to quickly introduce my panel members, not in the order they're sitting here. First, we've got Admiral Jason Lloyd. Admiral Lloyd is NAVSEA's chief engineer. I love to tease him because not only is he NAVSEA's Chang, but he's got logistics in his portfolio. So I call him, he is the Chang and Suppo for NAVSEA, a nuclear engineer by training, and was most recently the reactor officer on Ford. Admiral Joe Hornbuckle, commander of our Fleet Readiness Centers. Call sign Bo, a test pilot by training, and he runs our Navy's organic aircraft depots. Admiral Seiko Okano, PEO, Integrated Warfare Systems. In this capacity, she's got a $5+ billion portfolio that is responsible for delivering combat and weapon systems to the fleet. I often tell folks it's unique in NAVSEA. You would think in my work, deal more with the PEO ships on the new construction side or in service, but I say no. Admiral Okano is really the people that our team works with the most because her systems are critical to delivering the firepower that we need. Admiral Diana Wolfson, the Fleet Maintenance Officer at Fleet Forces Command, also a nuclear engineer by training, but why I asked her to join this panel was because what she did prior to putting on flag, she was the commanding officer of the Norfolk Naval Shipyard. And so she was at ground zero on us taking the learnings of 341 and naval aviation and applying it to the shipyards. And then last but certainly not least, Miss Amy Gowder, President and CEO, Defense and Systems for GE Aerospace, a critical strategic partner. It was vital that we got the right industrial partner to talk about the things that we need to do to help you and industry help us do better. Vital member of our partnership team, and she's going to talk about some of the challenges her company is running into vis-a-vis the supply chain, et cetera, which I think will be wonderfully helpful. So with that, let us begin. And so I'm going to start, we talked about 341, so Admiral Hornbuckle, I'm going to start with you. Can you talk a little bit about some of the cross-organization dynamics that you and I were part of when I was at WSS that led to improved supply support, and then couple that with the learnings from 341? How did that help your organization achieve what you've done today?
Yeah, absolutely, Ken. Just start by, just building out the journey to 341. And again, we were going from somewhere around 50% to somewhere around 80%, a monumental goal. We all thought it was unachievable. And we all told ourselves that really the only way to do that is we need a bunch more money, a bunch more people, and a bunch more parts. You remember the more parts part vividly. So that started us on the journey. And we really looked at, what were the core elements of readiness and decompose those. For us in the organic depots, it was what are our turnaround times, and how many, what was our WIP? How many airplanes did we have going through the line? And what we found is our turnaround times were about twice as what they should have been compared to world-class industry standards. And that led to twice as many airplanes off the flight line for twice as long. So we got after that in a very methodical way. broke it down, set up world-class production controls. We tracked our parts critically. We got after the parts with our partners, and we gradually just ground it down. We knew every lever that we had to pulled it, and then measured the response that we got out of the system. And over the course of about 2 years, once we got the flywheel spinning, we were able to grind up to 341, and now consistently north of 341 for a strike fighter community. The next big point was there, as we went, we said, okay, how do we scale this learning? So we started with other platforms, V22, E2D, and we looked, okay, so where are our terminals? And it was amazing, once we got the ball rolling, and then we could get the people who had learned so much from the previous evolution work alongside with that, we could start to break down. This applied to the depots, it applied to the O-level learning, it applied to the supply learning. One of the big things that I would bring out from our time together is we found, and I think you'll agree with me, within the FRC, we were grading our homework. We did exactly what we said we were going to do this year. Our NOR balanced out, so we're green. Right. WSS, I think, was telling themselves something similar, and our partners down at DLA Aviation, we took a good hard look at the metrics that mattered to the fleet. We started to measure, for example, what was the time that engine came off the wing until it was back in the can in RFI, and we decomposed that. We convened the forums, for our triad of WSS, DLA, and the FRCs, and we said we don't have the right metric set. We're measuring inside our own houses. We need to measure the entire ecosystem with our industry partners and attack collectively those choke points as we go. Yeah. So that was probably the biggest point I'll share on that is to be collaborative. And with that, and I'm thrilled you're up here, and we can't do it solely within the government. So thinking, acting, and operating differently, we stood up forums. Every type model series, for the most part now within naval aviation, has a weekly or monthly HUD meeting, and HUD being a metaphor for the heads-up display where you can see all the information at once in real time. And it allows us to flatten that communication, focus clearly on what's hurting our head, get after it, and fix or elevate the problem. What is the choke point? And rather than taking it months to work through contracts folks, or from the IPT to the PMA to the PEO to the SysCom, we could have those discussions in real time and provide that relief at the level that was most appropriate there. So when we come to our industry partners, and particularly for this forum, and you get the opportunity, and most of you will, to participate in those forums, please come and behave differently. Be uncomfortably transparent, and be clear in your articulation of what the problem is and what you would need to move forward, and let's move forward together. Thank you, Ken.
Thank you, Joe. Yeah, and I, one of the takeaways that Admiral Hornbuckle brought up, so you'll hear a term us Navy folks use a lot now, which is embracing the red. And the way I talk about it at my command is, it's not about the 87 that you got on that test this morning that we consistently do day in and day out. It's that the 13% we leave on the table, and we focus all of our energies on that 13%. It seems simplistic, but that mindset shift has really been a key driver to the gains that we've made here. So now another thing too, I get to wear multiple hats in my job, and so the naval aviation journey was a significant journey, but in many ways, naval aviation, just the way it's set up in type model series, it's a very clean, efficient, easier to get after than my next questionnaire, who had I think a much tougher journey, and that's going to be for Admiral Wolfson. So, in many ways, NSS is what I call the poster child for get real, get better. But you talk about a hairy, audacious challenge in the shipyard on availability. So, Admiral Wolfson, can you share with the group what you all learned from naval aviation, getting to 341? And how that informed how you led at the shipyard, and then how you lead in your current position at Fleet Forces Command.
Yeah, thanks, Admiral Epps, and thanks for being here. Thanks to the Navy League and my colleagues. So this is super exciting for me. One, because I'm an aspiring logistician. Just ask Admiral Epps, and I'm just kidding, but I do really enjoy it. So I thought I would share a story here because it really does, as I was thinking about this, it really does kind of set the stage, and the things that you just talked about, Admiral Hornif, are just like exactly in line with like my learning that I'm going to talk, and we haven't even rehearsed this. So, it's one of those picture this. So, several years ago, I'm at Norfolk Naval Shipyard, and I'm actually briefing a rebaselining. So for those of you that aren't familiar with shipyards, when we rebaseline in availability, essentially we move the goalposts, if you will. Not favorable, not what we like to do, but fact of matter, things come into play, and we look at that. So I'm in a rebaseline availability. I just got into the shipyard, and it was for a submarine availability, the Pasadena. And I'm in there, and who do you think I'm briefing? I'm briefing Sublant, right? So that was Admiral Cottle at the time, my old boss in that way, but my new boss now at Fleet Forces Command. But anyway, so I'm in there briefing him. And, I'm briefing them all the COAs on what we do, the first one, low risk, medium risk, high risk, and coming through all of these things. And at the end of the day, we offered one that was going to get us to something that was what we thought would be predictable. We're getting behind, 63 days late, but this is, I'm coming in with this. She's probably 4 to 5 months behind. We're going to go get after it. This is what we're going to go do. And we're all behind this. Over. What do you think? And I'll tell you, Admiral Cottle at the time was like, yeah, Diana, that's just not good enough. That's not good enough. I mean, you don't even have a COA here that's going to get me back to the original schedule. Like, that's not okay. Like, I need you to go do more. So, it was like a drop the mic moment. And it was like, okay, well, I'm going to have to go work on this. And I had been paying attention to Naval Sustainment System aviation. And we were in the middle of changing winds at this exact time with Naval Sustainment System shipyards and this Get Real, Get Better framework. And so I went back to the drawing board and said, all right, we're going to have a North Star team. And that North Star is going to be, we're going to undock this boat on time. And you should have dropped the mic as well, because it was a big, hairy, audacious goal. And it was met with initially a lot of resistance. We can't do that. That's not possible. There's no way we can get back to that time. It's 7 weeks from now. How's that going to happen? And I'll tell you, though, as we went to embrace Get Real, Get Better, the self-assess, self-correct, build a learning team as we move forward, we really started to uncover all the mechanics behind what was important to us to be able to do that. And so that was having the right visibility. I can't overemphasize enough, like having visibility to what you are working on, to the metrics, so that you're holding that standard. And similarly, accountability to that as well. And so we went off to go design this process around this through also a similar OCC, or Operational Control Center, where we were, almost attack time, if you will. We were looking at the lay of the land from critical and controlling paths, but we were also looking at the volume, and we were learning real time. And we weren't just addressing problems, we were elevating barriers, and we were, swarming, if you will, to determine what the path forward would be. And so there was a lot of learning from the aviation side, and we brought that in. And I'll tell you, as you fast forward to, the day that we're undocking and we're down there, so I know you guys are riveted here in your seats. As we were undocking, I had this aha moment, and we undocked 62 days late. But I will tell you, the aha moment for me was that if we hadn't chosen the North Star, and we hadn't gone all in to revolutionize the way we were doing business and working on our production system, we never would have had the opportunity to actually be where we were at that time. And so it was really a very significant learning moment, not just for myself, but for our entire, our entire leadership team, and then also our whole shipyard. One, because every day we could tell if we were winning or losing, which was really, really important. And we were in the details. We were understanding, and we were swarming, as I mentioned, the problems that we were having. And so it was really a good takeaway. The normal, rally we would have done would have been status quo of a rally, and it would have been a losing proposition altogether. And so that was really that main learning that we embraced, and we were able to move forward with that. So it was really, and so today, we have to continue that. The Get Real, Get Better framework is really powerful. I don't think it's something that's brand new, but it's a framework for us. And if we follow it, it really can make a difference. And, I think it did for us.
Good. Thank you, Admiral Wolfson. And I think one of the great takeaways from her reply, culture change is really a key driver here. And so we're not going to talk specific to culture change. There may be an opportunity in your questioning, though, to ask her about, the significant challenges, especially in an institution that she led that is, centuries old, and having to do the things that she did are just remarkable. So thank you. Admiral Lloyd, so we've seen one piece of NAVC talk about how they've contributed to the game. CNO likes to talk about putting more players on the field. So what can you share with the audience about what else NAVC is doing to meet the CNO's goal of more players on the field?
Yeah, thanks, Admiral Epps. It's funny you mentioned the culture change. One of my favorite quotes is, if you don't like change, you're going to like irrelevance even less. And I'll tell you that if you read the Defense Industrial Base Strategy, which is out there for everybody to read on the internet, and you look at the 45-day shipbuilding study, the number one problem we have to solve here is developing more resilient supply chains and the associated trained workforce to get after ship repair, ship sustainment, and shipbuilding, right? So we've got to go solve that problem, which is a big, hairy problem. An industrial base that does not support what we need to do, and the workforce that does not support what we need to do. This is going to take an all-in strategy. I'm not just talking about DoD, I'm talking about the United States, all in with industry to get after this. So two ways that we're looking at this problem is tactical ways and then the more strategic way, and I'll talk about the tactical ways. Admiral Wilson is there, or Captain Wilson was at the time, at Norfolk Naval Shipyard, trying with the current technologically acceptable capabilities to get her ship repaired. There are technologies out there right now that we should be putting in their hands so that they can go execute, and we're not doing it. We're doing it better. I see Tim Barnard out there. He's my lead for it. But last week, as an instance, we approved a letter allowing mechanically attached fittings to be used in place of welding and brazing. Mechanically attached fittings, if you don't know what they are, they're basically fittings that you put on either end of a pipe and crimp them on. It's done. It's 8 times faster than welding or brazing. It's just as strong as welding or brazing. It doesn't require fire watch, right? And it's allowed for all low pressure piping on surface ships. That's a game changer, right? That helps you get to that docking date, right? By putting the technologies in the hands of the shipyard workers and the sailors. And there's not a lot of training with it, right? So we approved it last week for surface, or in September for surface ships. This next week, we're approving it for aircraft carriers outside of the propulsion plant. But we're going to continue to work on this. Is what other technologies can we put in their hands? Industry is the leader of technology, right? They develop the technology. And so how do we get industry to work with us to get quickly those repair processes approved and in? The second one I'll talk about is more strategic. It's interesting that we're here with GE, but our journey on this one came with a visit by Mr. Barnard and team and I to GE. GE's additive manufacturing capabilities, right? That technology is out there. GE is using that technology right now. So you've got an industrial base that the casting and forging industry just doesn't support building what we need to do. It doesn't exist. It went away when we stopped building ships for 15 years, okay? The workforce to do that went away when we stopped building for 15 years, right? This can be a solution, right? It can be a solution if we can operationalize additive manufacturing as an alternative to casting or forging. So if I don't have the casting or forging capacity in the United States, I want to go be able to print those parts. And we want to get it done by the beginning of 2026. And we're going to get it done by the beginning of 2026. So how are we going to get there? We're focused on 4 lines of effort. First, low-risk parts. We signed out a letter about a year ago, low-risk parts, and basically said, hey, if you can print a part, and if it fails, it's not going to hurt anybody or hurt any systems, print the part, put it on the ship, let's put a DFS on it, and operationally test it. I don't need to spend time in the lab doing this. I'm confident it's going to work, but just to make us feel safer, let's put it on and operationally test it, right? Once it's been on there and worked for a year, the technical data package I used to print that part is now in the approved database. And now anybody can use that TDP to print that part, right, for low-risk parts. For high-risk parts, think level 1 subsafe. I don't know the material properties of a titanium valve that's been additively manufactured. That makes everybody, ooh, don't know the property. So I'm not ready to install that. However, we're working with industry and academia to develop material maturity plans. I think the stress strain curves for a 3D printed part out of a certain material with a certain printer type. And we're developing those technical data packages from those material maturity plans and putting those in for level 1 subsafe. Tim and team are running with that right now with academia and industry. And then as we go along, we're going to converge those two, right? If nothing low risk has failed in a year, all right, let's take it up to the next level, right? And let's merge those two together to get this out as quickly as possible. The third line of effort is the enablers. So all of the logistics support that's going to be required to get this done, the logistics support for the printers, the logistics support for the sailors, the RMC workers, the shipyard workers. How are we going to train the new collar workforce that is excited about manufacturing again? How do we bring them in there to get this new technology and drive towards what we all need to do in the industrial base? And then the fourth line of effort is AM afloat, additive manufacturers or printers on ships. 2022, we installed our first metal combination polymer printer shop on a ship on USS Baton. On her first underway, she used that shop first to print a ballasting air compressor sprayer plate that had a lead time of 12 months, and won't go into the details, but we got it printed in 5 days. Got that DBAC back up, 5 months instead of 12 days. Later on, we had iFlaws, which is aviation critical, broke on that ship. We worked with NavAir. We used the polymer printer to print the part on there to bring iFlaws back up. That was going to be a significant degrader of their capability. So we can do this. We've proven it. I won't go into the details, but I can tell you later, the first part we printed on that printer paid for itself. It paid for the cost of the entire print shop. One part. So this is a doable thing. We can absolutely go do this, and we're dedicated to pushing to get that for industry.
Thank you. Good answer. I was in Boston last week for a course on AI, and you're at MIT, so you can consider the crowd there. And one of the frustrations from the staff was kind of the disconnect between the technology that exists today that is rapidly and innovatively embraced in industry, commercial industry today, and the chasm between the technology that exists that can answer many of our challenges and how we bring it closer to where we are. I think Admiral Lloyd talked about some profound ways that we are doing that in additive manufacturing, but I think a good question later on will be some of the other technologies that I think many of you kind of look at us and say, I have it right here in my hand. All you got to do is reach out, and maybe helping us reach out will be a nudge there. Thank you, Jason. Admiral Kano, so Navy's not alone in this journey. You've got, as the lone PEO up here, you own it from cradle to grave, so you see it all, you're responsible for it all, and we've got to work with you to come up with solutions that are either we can get right today or develop them sort of on the fly. And so can you talk about what you're doing in that realm, both in terms of partnering with industry and then things that you're having to do under current conditions to if not resuscitate, resurrect some organic sustainment that we've got to do simultaneously.
Yeah. I want to add on to what Jason was saying about additive manufacturing. So first of all, Jason came and talked to my entire leadership team on it. You've energized us. So, really appreciate the partnership as always. When we look at, so from a PEO perspective, I'll tell you, you would think that sustainment would kind of be on a back burner, and I would say it's front and center for us. And it's really about, we look at it more in the transforming it digitally to add on to the additive manufacturing piece. Everything from MBSE, model-based systems engineering, how do you pull those digital threads all the way to the very end? Because, how do you get that TDP, right? And how do you adjust if that TDP is adjusting? How do you make sure that that is actually coming from, your models, right? And so it's really, really important for us to start with MBSE. We use digital twins for all of our testing. And that's pulling that visibility, end-to-end visibility, all the way to the sustaining piece, which is really, really critical. So, digitizing in every way. If there's an ask, for industry, it's just really invest in digitizing your supply chains. Make sure you have models like MBSE. Make sure you have, sparing models, and then put that into our ecosystem so that we can get parts, to print on the ships very, very easily. It's really, really important. As far as like what we're doing with some of our older systems, obviously we have a lot of older weapon systems out there. Sometimes it's not as lucrative for the industrial base to invest in some of those parts. So you're seeing a shift in, I would say, our relationships with industry, with our field activities predominantly, and also the agreements we use. A lot of public-private partnerships that are emerging across the board, more so than I've seen in a very long time. I'll give you a couple of examples. One is Crane, NSWC Crane just is opening a 400,000 square foot, I would say area outside of their gates specifically for public-private partnership where they've got all the organic tooling in there and industry comes in and can partner with them. And it's for all of our above water sensor equipment. So everything from SPY 1 to SPY 6 to Slick 32 to all of our rotating radars, everything there to sustain, repair those parts, to redesign parts are all going to be outside of Crane there. And that's I've just not seen that before. And that's really a new way of looking at that public-private partnership. The other one is on our missile side of the house. Indian Head is doing it for solid rocket motors. So they've got public-private partnerships in effect, bringing in industry and utilizing their organic tooling to increase our solid rocket motor capacity. So I think you're seeing, again, sustainment being front and center on a number of ways. It's pretty exciting, frankly. Because you're actually meshing design. It's going along the same lines as design, right? So design, you're kind of building in sustainment from the beginning, especially when you're talking about a lot of more complex systems where they use a lot more software intensive systems, also building in cyber resiliency. I know we're talking hardware, a lot of hardware stuff, but bringing in and doing cyber resiliency up front is really, really crucial, and that digital supply chain is important.
Thank you, Admiral O'Connell. Ms. Gowder, I mean, obviously, we could do an entire panel on the defense industrial base, and especially if you consider recent history, a once in a century pandemic, all the things attendant with that, the inflation, supply, you can't get around today and not hear the term supply chain woes. And then, just even last week, not everyone really connected the dots on the bridge collapse in Baltimore, and we knew immediately that would have impacts on us, and certainly they do now. So this has been a tough time for industry. What can you share with this audience about some of those challenges that you all are facing? And I think my big question to you is going to be, what can you tell us in the DoD side about how we can help you help us better?
Sure. Thank you, Admiral Epps. It's an honor to be up here with you guys. I'm going to first start and really connect the dots to a couple things Admiral Hornbuckle brought up with the heads-up display, and it's very similar to your "Did we win every day," Admiral Wolverson. So, we started the HUD journey to get our readiness engines to the required rate. And it had been a challenge, even pre-COVID, we weren't where we needed to be. And we weren't making as much progress, but really aligning the metrics, those metrics where we weren't in a silo. And we see this today in our supply base. We've found disconnects between what our suppliers were working to, what we were working to. We've even seen disconnects internally within GE to what the sourcing organization was doing versus what the production floor was expecting. And so that metric alignment, I think, is a really key point. The second comes back to culture with the heads-up display. Our team, I'll be very transparent, was very scared. They went into those meetings, they didn't speak the language, They didn't, they were worried about getting embarrassed or called to the carpet. And it took, daily, weekly rhythms to start to get comfortable with each other, to build the trust, to speak the language. But what really made the shift was the transparency of what needed to be true versus explaining what happened yesterday. And so that is a big shift in the mindset. And I know you can't get better till you get real. I think that's why you have the phrase you have. And that's been very true with us in industry. It wasn't until we were having those conversations of what do we have to do today to actually win the day, not just tell you what happened yesterday. And so the heads up display meetings really started to get the dialogue open and transparent. And then we went jointly to our constraining supplier, and we found it was a complex material system issue. And there had to be engineering involved to work through the MRBs to really understand how to make the process improvement at the supplier. And that's often a technical discussion. Many times, we in industry had just let the sourcing team go work with the suppliers, but it really has to be an integrated team. Without those suppliers involved, or without the engineers at the supplier, we couldn't really make the progress that we wanted to make. And then there were process and contracting issues that were preventing the barriers as well. So I think for us, it was a journey, but it was an enlightening journey, and it built the trust. And then when you started to see the rhythm, we actually exceeded the goal 6 months early because we were working together. And it's a hard conversation because everyone's, I think, under stress with either they've lost the workforce, they can't get the workforce they need, or the constraining raw material or the prices of the raw material have gone up so drastically. It's a hard time for industry. And that's where maybe what you can do to help comes in. It is a risk conversation. And the more transparent we can be with articulating, is the risk a technical risk? Is the risk truly metals inflation in the market that we can't control? Or is it we're just misaligned and we're not working together well? So some of the incentives or some of the penalties that worked in the past may be at this point just too punitive because we're under such stress. At the same time, we've had to have hard conversations with our suppliers, and still are, that, okay, the inflationary environment of chips, as an example, the chips electronic space has stabilized. They've actually got the supply in a decent position. We don't see inflationary pressures. Let's not escalate the prices on those. But you have to be back to transparency. And we're going to have to both look at the risk profile. Some of the penalties aren't going to incentivize us anymore because the problem is real. But some of the collaboration, and frankly, it was very impactful when you in your blue, navy, white, green suiters, when all the services go with us to a supply base, it really can make a difference to motivate the workforce in what they're working for and why it's so important. So I think continued transparency, having a balanced discussion about risk. EPA clauses can be good, but sometimes they're too narrow. So what is the real risk that's driving either price or schedule, and how do we go after it?
Good. That's helpful. Thank you.
And Ken, if you don't mind, I'll just
please.
build on that, because there are some fantastic lessons that came out going back to the engine readiness goal journey. That was just not a hierarchical flattening from the top down kind of discussion. That particular ecosystem is very complex. The motors come off the wing at 2 FRCs, they get broken down to modules, they come to a third FRC. We enter into a series of partnerships with WSS and public-private partnership back to the FRC on the other side of the curtain. So the need to communicate those barriers very, very rapidly is there. And what we saw is often, either the prime or the subs needed help to go faster, whether it was a deviation technically or a contracts mod. And that was something, if we left to the bureaucracy, you were measuring timelines in double-digit months, where it's often a decision that you could get to in just a few days if you put the right energy to it and elevated it rapidly. So, we're continuing to build there, but some great examples for the entire team on that one. Thank you.
Thanks, Admiral Hornbuckle. So that was a great, I think, transition to questions and what Ms. Gatter talked about. So she covered a lot there. I think that one of the secrets to us, certainly on the uniform side, was just this this partnering that we do now, and partnering that we've done at a level that I've never seen before, and it's at this level. So it's part of this Get Real, Get Better journey, but it's all about embracing the red, but it's really working very closely with our partners, whether you're a 1-star, 2-star, whatever the case may be. We have not been afraid to roll up our sleeves and dig into some hard problems and lead from the front with our team. So I think that's been important. I think the transparency has been really important, because the other piece with the transparency has been there's a vulnerability aspect to this. And the vulnerability gets to my second piece. I opened up saying, hey, in my many decades of doing supply stuff, I've oftentimes caught myself up on my heels, because when the day is done, you sort of learn about your challenges when you don't have that thing on the shelf, and you need to have that thing on the shelf. And so our status quo way of doing business has always been, hey, that thing's not on the shelf, it's a supply problem, and everything revolves around the supply problem, and everyone focuses there. And I think with our recent journey, we have pulled back from that way of looking at things, and really recognizing that supply can be a problem, but it oftentimes is more a reflection of an issue further upstream that I talked about. And I think all of us here live on that stream at some point along the stream, and our ability to recognize what part of the stream we own, to where we have been vulnerable in that. And then the vulnerable part is opening up and accepting that we have got to do something about that. It was a real epiphany for me to see the teams do that. And we have made meaningful progress in the years after after decades and decades of just focusing on the supply problem, looking at the entire stream and getting after that. So I think that's been the big lesson for me. And so with that, I wanted to leave at least about a third of this session open to questions. We got a big room full of people here. So there are mics around here if you want to ask questions, but sir, we'll start with you. Thank you.
Thanks a lot. My name's Jim Shannon from VTG, and know some of you up there, and very grateful to the Navy League for allowing this kind of dialogue. Admiral Epps, that last statement you made really leads to my question. I was in the Navy over 10 years ago and responsible for a lot of the maintenance and modernization of Navy ships. And I'm always fascinated with what problems I had that are now solved. And I'm very fascinated with things that never change. But my question is about a new problem that I'm watching, and I don't understand where it's coming from. When ships go into maintenance availabilities and modernizations today, what we're witnessing on the industry side is a lot of cannibalization as the initial step when the ship pulls in. A much higher rate of cannibalization than we've seen in the past. Can anybody address what's going on there? It's really impacting downrange at the end of the availability when you have to do testing, but all the things aren't back yet.
Yeah, I'll take the first shot, and then or you take the first shot. I'll support you if you want. Yeah. You're the maintenance person.
Yeah, okay. I'll take the first shot, and then I'll have my backup here. So as you say that, what comes to mind is sort of our Virginia class material learning journey. And I'll tell you, we didn't really set ourselves up for success on the Virginia class material piece. And so we've learned a lot in these last few years. And it's sort of in that Get Real, Get Better framework. 50% of the material we were ordering after start avail. 33% of it after we started took 6 months or longer to go get. So what did we end up doing? Right, we ended up cannibalizing, just as you said. And then, we were going from heel to toe on boats that are coming in, trying to figure out a way to help ourselves. And I think the PEO subs, and a credit to all the partners, it's exactly what you're saying, Admiral Epps. It's everybody leaning in. It's not a oh, you guys, you didn't put sustainment in, and you didn't get the logistics tail in. We didn't really focus as much on that as we did on everybody leaning in, whether it was NAVSUP, DSS, WSS, like every DLA, everybody leaning in to be able to find a common solution. And so with that, there's a lot of pieces that I think are becoming part of the process that we're learning on. So some of that is a bill of materials, as an example, very recent for Virginia class, that's block and submarine dependent. And that's been really crucial because now it's almost like a list of, hey, these are the parts that I need to order. I wish we would have had that before. And now we can go figure out how to get more of them on the shelf. And so that's been a learning curve there as well. Similarly, we are also incorporating visibility. So I mentioned in my previous, this learning journey, visibility to all of it. So, the discussion with all of the parts that we do need is very visible as part of Horizon review boards now. And, even Admiral Epps is involved in those. I'm involved in them. We are leaning in heavily. Admiral Lloyd is involved in them. We're all in on these calls trying to determine solutions moving forward so that we have the visibility on all of the parts as opposed to just letting the maintainers figure out what boat they're going to can-ab it from. So there's been a lot that we're working on there. And then I think if you were to fast forward to Columbia, there's a lot of effort in designing, though, the sustainment that you talked about into the plan and into the program, and making sustainment part of the acquisition program. And I think that's actually really what will unleash all of this opportunity in front of us, and we're doing that as you see on Columbia as well. And so that's sort of pieces and parts of that with the Center of Excellence that we are having with Virginia class material, and we are actually have a design for sustainment associated with Columbia too. And so I think it's not just, I think can-abs are still going to be part of our future near term for Virginia class. I think that's the get real part of where we are, but embracing the get real, get better pieces, I think that we have self-assessed, we are correcting, and we're continuously building this learning team on how to go after getting all the parts. So
She might as well drop the mic there. That was great. So I will add that one thing she focused on there was the trusting teamwork that we have here. And that has really allowed us to stop blaming other organizations and get at the problem. That's how we realized the Virginia class material that she just talked about. That's how we realized that problem. And the get better part was, number one, we have to do can-abs better. And number two, we have to go put that bill up before Congress to get the authorization to buy the material that we need to shore up the supply system in the next couple of years. That's a longer term problem, but Admiral Rucker did that. He went up, he got it, it's authorized, and we're solving the long term problem. So I don't think without this teaming that we have here and us questioning each other, saying, hey, that doesn't make sense to me, instead of pointing fingers of blame, I don't think we would have gotten here.
Good question. And for us, as you well know, cannibalization, I talk about the missing part on the shelf, but cannibalizations really represent, there's something really bad going deep down if we have to get to that point. And that was another warning signal that the issues were not just about, hey, somebody forgot to do a thing early on, and all we have to do is rush out to our local Costco, pick it up, and all is said and done. Once we pulled the string back on that, we recognized that this got to where the partnering really came into motion.
Admiral, just one more thing, and as you know, Jim, some people might not really realize the significance of that, but when Admiral Wolfson makes a plan to do an availability and she comes in, the first 50 things she has to do is cannibalize a part, she just doubled her workload, right? You got to go take that first part off. You got to put it on the second boat. And then when the new part comes in, you got to put it on the first boat. That was not in her work package, right? You're not going to get done on time if that's the going in starting point. Yeah. Thanks for the question.
Thank you.
Yes, sir. Great question.
And by the way, there's a very reasonable chance that you're going to break it in the process and make your promise.
Absolutely.
So the only reason to like cannibalizations is because they're a flare, and we as leaders in the government and industry, we need to swarm to those. And if we feel the organizations are beginning to normalize that behavior, which I think we did too long. Yeah. Thanks, Ken.
Yes, sir.
Yes, Rick Easton, retired surface warfare officer. So first of all, thanks to the panel for your insight. Have you seen a specific track? And at the last couple of conferences, I heard a lot about maintenance backlog and days of maintenance delay. Haven't actually heard that much talked about this time. So I don't know if that means we're doing well or we're not taking credit for it or what, but have we seen this effort track into reduction in maintenance backlog or days of maintenance delay? And then also, in the interest of process improvement, Admiral Epps, is there going to be an NSS 3.0?
Sure. Thank you.
I'll take it first. So, yes, we're still focused on days of maintenance delay. I think what we're telling you here is that we've pushed and we worked around the edges on days of maintenance delay, work harder, do better, everything like that. And what we've uncovered is there is an industrial base supply chain problem here that no matter how much you push on the mechanic to go faster, we're not going to go faster. We're not going to reduce those days of maintenance delay. So we got to get after changing the industrial base and growing the new collar workforce, right? Advanced training in defense manufacturing, warriors for maintenance in San Diego, all of these training pipelines. Once AM and advanced manufacturing comes up, how do we put those people in there to reinvigorate the industrial base to get after the bigger portion of this days of maintenance delay? But I think that really drove us into, all right, we've done all we can at yelling at people and fighting fires and everything else. What else do we need to do?
Yeah, I agree with that as well. I think we are seeing some positive trend on the surface ship maintenance. I think if SWOBOS was here or C21 CNRMC, they would tell you, and you see it in the data and the metrics, that there is an upward trend. That being said, I still think like 75 mission capable, that is this big, hairy, audacious goal. That is what we are trying to go after. I think is very challenging unless we do more. And some of that is in the contracting arena, right? So some of the things, if you listen to a couple of the panels today from either HASC or shipbuilding or those kinds of things this morning, you would have heard, there's things we've got to go get after in regard to the way we used to do business in the MISMO days to the way we're doing them now with MACMO, and something in that we got to like put it all in a jar, shake it up, and go after trying to get best of both worlds. And what I mean by that is, we've got to figure out a way to, understand the number of MACMOs that we have, provide repetitive work to our partners, because it's when you give repetitive work, you can go get better at what you do. I think that is a little bit of what challenges some of the larger shipyards, the larger public shipyards very specifically. So there's a lot of thinking we have to go into, similar to, the CANAB discussion and being smarter about how we design sustainment into our plan. We need to do that on the contracting side too, to give our partners a chance for heel-to-toe repetitive work across the board so that we can levelize port loading. And so I think there's a lot there. And then of course, like you said, with material and having, all of the supply world and sustainment world step up at the same time, I think we're on the right track for a lot of those things because we're talking about it right now and we're working on overhauling all of that.
I think, Admiral Epps, one thing I'll build on the leadership theme that you started. What I see in the current workforce is they are locked into the way they've always done it, and asking them to go faster is just not going to work. And I've seen teams where I say, I want you to do it differently. Like, no kidding, I want you to create a different team. And their mindset won't go there at first. You really do have to have the leadership to push them and tell them you have their back in order to get them to change. And it does start at our level, because otherwise they just are locked in the system, they're locked in. And the second point, Admiral Lloyd, you brought up, we've got, as a nation, we've got to say 4-year college degrees are not the only way to have a great career. That these apprenticeship programs, that getting into additive manufacturing, going to a weld school, those are exciting, rewarding, and fulfilling careers that do pay well. And we've got to, as a nation, I think, push our youth more into that way in order to have a good pipeline.
Okay. Any other comments?
Yeah, I'll jump in with one to the point of reducing turnaround times, and I'll go back to the analogy that you opened up with of getting to 341 Super Hornets. As we decompose that was not just incrementally do better, but to your point, what has to be true in order to enable that? And when you decompose it on the depot side, we had way too many Super Hornets on a PMI line for about 150 days apiece. And backing the math out of that, the answer needed to be a consistent 60-day turnaround time, half the airplanes in for less than half the time, to make those readiness goals true. So an important part of that journey is getting to that goal that says, okay, what has to be true to achieve 60 days? We weren't going to be successful just going in and saying incrementally improve from 150. We would have to find those big levers that got us to 60, and it really forced us, to your point, to think differently.
That's a good point. Thank you all. And then I think you asked me a question about 3.0, so that's an easy answer for you, and that is no. And the reason I say that is, this NSS journey is almost like a task force. It's got a very finite thing we have to do. And then what's critical from our end here is that we have now baked this into our DNA. And so there's no need to have these sprints and pilots, because now all the learning that we've done and all the best practices that we've taken on and all the bad practices that we've jettisoned, that should be baked into how we operate going forward. And part of our Get Real, Get Better journey, the leaders here are taught a process called DMAIC. And so if you haven't looked into that, Google DMAIC. But I'll cheat for you here. The C in DMAIC is control. And once you've gone through all the processes of DMAIC, the last thing you have to do is set a fail-safe door so that you don't ever want to get back to this place again. We are all living witnesses of what happens when this system goes awry. And so we are taking, I think, very valiant efforts to put the C, the control, to block that off into perpetuity so that our successors will never be in this place again.
Well, thank you very much for that great answer. So I guess it's continuous process improvement.
Yes.
Yeah.
From that perspective.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
I think we have time for one more question here. So, sir, over to you.
Yes, sir. Jim Gillies from Maryland. Lots of great discussion about additive manufacturing, both NAVAIR and NAVC. How do we convince OpNav to generate a strategy for additive manufacturing, both afloat and ashore, and then convince them to validate that requirement and then fund it?
I'll take the first shot, and then I'll turn over to you. So,
Yeah, please.
So last week, I spent a week in Monterey doing precisely that. Last week, we got in all of the type commanders, all came out. We had NAVAIR with Ted Granda came out, and we went out and laid out, all right, this is a solution to our defense industrial base problem. Not the solution, but a solution. How do we get this defined as a program of record, determine the requirements, right? I'll tell you that I'm working with ASNRDA, DASN Sustainment. Ms. Plath is working very hard at this. How do we do this, either as a Navy or as a DoD? What's the right way to do this? Because this Navy industrial base is not the only organization that has problems. The industrial base out there has to get worked on. And so we're getting after the pieces of it. I'll tell you, I was at ATDM in Danville with Ted Granda last month when we did the ribbon cutting for the NAVAIR additive manufacturing training pipeline. Mr. Barnard's running with a lot of industry out there to get those people trained. But it's all right now still a pickup game. We're trying to get those requirements all put together, and that's going to be all the TICOMs need your help. Absolutely. Defining the afloat requirements, and then also with the shipyards, what are the ashore requirements? What do you need to do? Because again, it's not a technology problem. GE's doing it. We can get there. We have to make that sail and push that forward. So that's on us, I believe.
Yeah, thank you. Jim, nice to see you. Thanks for the question. Couple of dimensions to that. My personal opinion is it's bigger than just additive manufacturing. It is a fantastic capability, but within the organic infrastructure, we have world-class, if you come out to San Diego, 5-axis machines that'll reductively manufacture just about anything. So my belief is it's an advanced organic manufacturing strategy, and that takes some significant partnering with our industry partners. We can be a source of supply for WSS, we can be a source of supply for DLA, and we can be a source of supply back to those public-private partnerships. So my opinion is we should expand our thinking a little bit to it's not just additive, it's advanced organic manufacturing.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. When I first started talking, I started talking about the MAFs. That's not additive, but it's advanced manufacturing. It's a different method of producing faster. And so I completely agree with you that we got to look at all those technologies out there. How can we scale those to support the defense industrial base? So I appreciate the perspective. Thank you.
Thank you.
I appreciate your answers and your questions. I'm going to call it.
Thanks.
I've nailed it. I have 10 seconds left on the clock before our time is up. So,
hey, Chief, can I hijack you for a minute? It's Matt
sure.
Ott from
Yeah,
WSS.
Admiral Ott, go ahead.
Hey,
go ahead
awesome
and break
panel.
my perfect timing.
Yeah, I just hosed you. Sorry about that.
It's okay.
Hey, these teammates up here, I think if there's a takeaway from hearing this, the question that was earlier about what's being done differently, this idea of synchronization of locking a planning work package, like locking predictive work within a realistic lead time to, no kidding, front load that material left of bang. So if you were an industry partner and you were experiencing longer lead times and you're not communicating that, that's a shortcoming as a respective audience. This is a one-hit wonder to say, hey, I predict it's going to be there in 6 months. It's actually the terms and conditions of my sub-suppliers have changed. It's now taking a year. The faster this energy gets into the balloon helps the partnership succeed. The submarine industrial bases put $1.3 billion into Virginia-class material. That's a lot. It's competing with production. It's necessary for these work packages to complete on time. It's no different than Admiral Hornbuckle had to encounter when the NAE had the F-18, had a ramp up, still had to produce FMS requirements, and then also had to tie in this PMI or repair line lead time with vibrancy. So as an audience, I think the one thing that the panel has really nailed is, no kidding, production, spares, sustainment generated by fleet operations, and that demand synchronization. There is no stovepipe across this leadership architecture, and really with the mindset of where we own those recovery plans, and when we're off track, we are swarming that, but we certainly need the best of industry to not only just own what you historically have monitored and led, but we will put money into the engine, and that engine has to get tighter and tighter and tighter, and our lead times are such that they cannot go right of plan. So more of a commentary to build on the earlier plan, but to foot stomp, thanks for all of this leadership team and the information you've given us today. Thanks.
Thank you, Admiral Ott. Admiral Ott, who is the commander of NAVSUP, and if I'd had a sixth member on this panel, he would have been number 6, critical to what we've done here. Yeah. I think some of the members will be sticking around for a few minutes afterwards if you wanted to come up and ask any one-on-one questions. So I want to close out by saying, one, thank you for spending your hour with us. We appreciate your time and attention here. And how about a round of applause for these wonderful panelists.